Okay, now that we have the power steering pump bracket unbolted, we can take out the remaining bolts, the engine mounting bracket here. Okay, so here's the upper one that goes through the radiator, or the firewall side timing belt cover. It's a longer one. Okay, here's the middle one, 14mm, kind of sits in a little well here. Okay, I've got the lower one turned out. It's 14mm. It's longer than the other one, the last one that came out, the middle. Okay, so the bracket is loose. Looks like the little timing mark part has to come off as well, just to get the bracket off. With a 10mm wrench or ratchet, pull off this little timing indicator here, the bottom of the bracket, because that's not allowing us to get quite enough clearance to pull this beautiful little bracket out of here. So remove this little timing indicator. So now we can get this bracket out. And there it is in all its beauty. Okay, next up is the upper timing belt covers. So these are just held on by 10mm. See, plastic cover, so it's not going to be torqued much. Other one's down here. There, now we're on there. Okay, we need to establish top dead center on cylinder 1. So we have to find spark plug 1, the point where it gets fired in the rotor. So this is number 1 right here. It's marked on the top of the cap. If we turn this over, you'll notice that 1 actually travels over this way, and this is the actual point where it's at, where the rotor makes contact with it. So I'm going to mark the outside of the cap right here. Actually, in this case, I'm just going to clean off the dirt. So I know where it is when I put it back on here. And then with a marker, I'm just going to mark on the body of the distributor itself where 1 is. So as we bring this around, we make sure we're getting the timing in exactly the right position. I'm going to be manually bringing this around. So I marked it here. Now I just make sure it's legible from the top. So when the rotor gets around to that position, that would be where it would be firing cylinder 1. Spark plug 1 and cylinder 1. So now what we're going to do is turn this by hand. We've got a 22mm socket on there. I'm going to use a 1/2" ratchet, turn it around until we can get the timing marks lined up on the camshafts. We're not going to be able to see the one for the crankshaft yet until we take the cover off, and then we're going to have to pull the pulley off. I suspect the leak on this car is in the main crankshaft oil seal. Okay, so we're trying to find top dead center, cylinder 1, 1/2" ratchet. Okay, so here's the top dead center position, cylinder 1. And there's one camshaft. There's the other cam. You see the tick mark lined up with the mark on the inside of the cover. And then if you look at the rotor, you can see now my original mark was off slightly. I rechecked that, and that's it. So you can see the leading edge of the rotor just hitting spark plug 1's contact inside. Okay, so now we got to start working on the crankshaft pulley. We have to remove these 6 bolts. This is 12 millimeter. Yeah, just if it moves it off top dead center, just put it back. It's going to tend to move a little bit as you break these bolts loose. Give them a jerk and they'll come loose. 2 pulleys. Okay, there goes one of them. So we got the outer one off. It's a 2-piecer. So there's the inner one. So we're going to just keep working it that same way. Pry bar in there. Alrighty, got that one pried out. So there we see the bottom of the crankshaft, oil welled up, pooled up down here. Okay, so what I've done here now in order to hold the crank in place, and we try to remove that large crank bolt, is fabricate a piece of angle iron. Just drilled a couple holes here, and they're going to seat right like this. It's going to be jammed up against the floor then so the crank can't turn, and hopefully we'll get that off of there. Okay, so now I have I've made a smaller bar here. It's resting up against the frame. This angle iron. It's 1/4 inch thick stock. Thinner stock that I had bent. So we're going to try this now. Okay, so you're going to just keep working it. Okay, it's starting to come. There it goes. I heard the first couple cracks, and it finally broke. So this took a 24-inch breaker bar, and of course that bar underneath there, locking it down. Okay, so we cracked it loose, and it was a chore. This is one of the hardest nuts to remove on a vehicle. Crankshaft nut. There it is. 22 inches monster. So it's off with our piece of angle iron that we had in here. This worked well. I had tried this in another location without success. A smaller piece of angle iron. It's a 1/4 inch. It's actually stainless steel. And glad I had it. Just drill your holes precisely, same distance apart. And there it is. This thing's only like a foot, 12, 14 inches long. Okay, this is the vibration damper. Well, that wasn't too bad at all. Off it came. There's a little spacer behind here. Spacer fits like this. Next up, lower timing belt cover. This is a larger piece, 10 millimeter. There's about 4 of them. Okay, there's 2 lower ones here. Okay, let's go top side. There's 2 more here. One here. And one right in the middle. this one over here. Make note, there's a longer one. Okay, so now looking at this from underneath, now that all those are off, get the cover off of here, and have a better look at what's going on in there. Now for all the world it looks to me like our leak is down. That is the crankshaft seal. I'm seeing nothing coming down from up above at all. So that's the seal that I'm going to go after. Although it may be wise in a case such as this to replace the other ones as well. That is the two camshaft seals. And even the water pump, which is right here. It's a water pump here. And there's the pulley for it. The pump. It'd be an excellent time to change the gasket out in there. I'm not having trouble with the pump, but I have in the past had trouble with water pumps on this engine, once before actually. And I'd rather not have to deal with a failed seal and do this entire disassembly job again. Okay, it's a very good point to bring all the timing marks back into alignment again. And now, since we no longer have a sprocket on here, we have to use this wrench. Because there's another mark right here. There's a little indent on this sprocket that lines up with a little raised mark on the water pump. You can see it right here. Here's the indent, and back here is the water pump. So now with that lined up, that's our third point of reference. That lined up, as well as, we'll just take another look up here. You can see that we have the tick mark. Power steering. Air conditioning hose is always in the way. This one's lined up on this sprocket, on this camshaft. The other camshaft's also lined up, as well as our rotor just about to make contact with spark plug number 1. Okay, so next up we're going to loosen up the tensioner for the timing belt. One note before that, if you're going to reuse this belt, you want it to go back on the same orientation. So put a little dab of paint or something on the edge, outside edge, so that same edge goes back. I'm going to replace this, but if I wasn't, that would be the way to make sure the belt goes back on the same way. Okay, so we've got the 12mm on the tensioner pulley here. I think I like to just take the spring off. I always put it back on, then it'll just fall down. Besides, I'm going to be doing some work on the water pump here. I'm going to change the gasket out. So we'll pull that spring off. Okay, so pull the spring off here with a needle nose. So we can just leave it hang there. It's not going to hurt anything. So now the belt can come out.